Hi,
Great to
nice to
meet
meet you.
you.
Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
And also, thanks very much for a fantastic book. I just finished it this morning, and it's a fantastic read. I
Oh,
loved it.
I'm glad you liked it. Thank you.
Uh-huh. So, I mean, before I even talk about the book itself, which is a great, you must be really excited about as on its own. But it's also you're going to be launching Zando's horror print, Evil Twin, with this book. I'm quite curious how that came about. That your book was, they decided that would be the best book to kind of launch this horror print.
Yeah, I mean it was a surprise to me,
Uh-huh.
they were working a lot behind the scenes and they kind of hinted at that they were maybe doing something, maybe not. And then uh when they decided, I think it was just a matter of right place, right time for me and like the schedule that they wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I'm super honored and excited that Tapeworm is their first book.
Uh-huh. But had they already actually acquired the book? I imagine
Yeah.
amongst a few, and then they just decided that would be the best release for them to
Yeah,
kind of open the
they
doors.
acquired Tapeworm, and then over the course of several months, they were kind of like, well, we're going to push the release a little bit, and we're going to not announce it until this, that, or the other.
Uh-huh.
And then I found out why, and I was like, this is awesome.
Uh-huh. Great. So, what I want to talk about before the book as well is how you got into writing, because I know that the book is dedicated to your grandmother, who you said challenged you to take the hard life of a writer. So, I'm quite
Yeah,
curious, how was she involved in writing, and why do you say that it's the hard life of a writer?
yeah. So I grew up moving around all over Europe and the United States, but over in the summers, I would visit her pretty often. She lived in
Uh-huh.
Los Angeles. And on one of those visits, I told her that I wanted to be a writer.
Right.
And I remember it super vividly. She just stood where she was and looked at me and paused for a second and was like, "It's a very hard life."
Right.
And that like stuck with me for a very long time. So much so that for years afterwards, I kind of explored other avenues. I was like, oh, maybe I want to try something else or this, that, or the
Uh-huh.
other. And then when I finally decided, like, no, this is writing is what I want to do, and uh, I realized how hard it is to be a writer.
Right. Uh-huh.
I heard her words, and I was like, she was right, and she was challenging me to, live that hard life.
Uh-huh. So I mean, two generations ago, being a writer or an actor or a director or whatever was kind of seen as something that wasn't a proper job per se. No, but that sounds
Yeah,
like they were encouraging you to do it, but also kind of highlighting that even though that it wasn't really seen as a proper job, it is a really tough business to get into. No.
yeah, she was very much a realist, very much, very no nonsense. And so, I mean, she didn't outright say like, "Oh, that's a terrible job. You shouldn't do that or
Yeah.
this, that, or the other." She was just like, in one
Uh-huh.
sentence, was like, "Hey, this is what you're going to be in for if that's what you want to do."
Uh-huh. And how much how did she kind of know the ins and outs of that and how difficult it was going to be? Was she involved in any way in the writing industry?
She wasn't in the entertainment business personally, but a lot of
Right.
people in it.
Right.
She grew up in Beverly Hills, was part of a lot of different groups, and had a lot of friends all over the place because she was very social. So she knew people that were in it and was
Right.
very close to some of them.
Uh-huh. And when did the penny finally drop for you that you realized after trying a few different avenues that writing was the one for you, despite all of its
Yeah,
the
so
hardships?
I eventually moved out to LA when I was 21, 22, and I was kind of working on scripts a little bit then,
Right.
but kind of got derailed and tried some other things. And then finally, when I was 29, I was like, I'm unhappy with everything. I need to
Right.
just really like let me just take this time now because I had an opportunity to essentially stop working what I was doing and just take a few months. And uh and I just kind of like dove headfirst into it. And it's the first time in my life that I've been able to stick to something so aggressively.
Right.
And it just once I started, taking it seriously and learning so much more about it, everything just kind of clicked for me.
Right.
And I was like, you know what, this is difficult, it's challenging, but it's also uh the most rewarding I've ever felt trying to do anything. It
Right.
didn't just feel like making ends meet or just doing the same thing or chasing, money or whatever it was. This was like I'm doing something, I'm creating something, and that act feels good to me, and I want to keep doing it.
Uh-huh. That kind of brings me to one of the quotes in the book. Obviously, I don't want to spoil anything, but one of the main
Mhm.
character, Victor, he says, "I wish someone praising something meant I'd want to experience it more, not less. But I'm broken like that." So it's kind of like, even though they told you not to do something, because not to do something, but to be aware that of kind of the
Yeah.
hardships there. Would you say that Victor is very much based on yourself?
I wouldn't say it's based off myself, but there's definitely aspects of myself in Victor that I really wanted to turn up to 11, like I
Hmm.
really wanted to take them to the absolute extreme. That is specifically one of them that is an element of myself because when it comes to anything, being told what to do, or even if someone recommends a TV show or a book or anything like that, I get this like mental like, no, I don't want to do it that way,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, but I don't think that's something that's broken. I think that's quite a popular opinion, especially when something gets
Yeah,
super
yeah, yeah.
hyped. You kind of like, I don't know if I want, I don't know. You go in wanting to watch it, and then maybe don't like it as much as you expected to because of the hype. No, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the pushing it to the extreme was the him thinking it's broken and what he thinks about that whole thing. Yeah,
Mm. I'm quite. I mean, you said there that obviously it's not completely inspired by you at all, but there's always going to be bits of you that bleed into the characters, no? So I mean,
for
when
sure.
you push these things up, dial them up to a lot more than kind of the way that you experience those things. What would you say this book has made you realize about yourself that maybe changes the way that you wrote the book, or maybe that you maybe kind
Um,
of realized about yourself through writing this specific book?
I think this book came after those realizations.
Right.
I think while I was writing this book, I was going back in time and looking at some of the aspects of my life and people that I knew years ago,
Hmm.
and I was purposely looking at them through the lens of who I am now,
Right.
the years of experience, therapy, different relationships, and I, I, when I was writing, I just wanted to focus on what it was like back then when things were not working.
Right.
You know, now that I know, I see how things can turn out for people and for myself. Um, but I wanted to live in the space of where I was, where people I knew were 10, 15 years ago.
Hmm. So I'm guessing maybe that was one of the genesis of kind of setting the story, centering the story around this failed relationship that we kind of we start the journey there. There's a failed relationship between Victor and Trisha, the girlfriend. Was that kind of your metaphor for kind of the way that you said that you were thinking back when things weren't in the best place for you?
Yeah. I think, having any relationship is always a big change, but the way that that relationship can affect everything in your life, including your friends, especially if you have shared friends,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think that was such a like important point in, or it can be such an important point in anyone's life when it's like something significant and important has ended, and now you're left wondering, what the hell do I do now? Who am
Yeah.
I? What do I do? Who are my friends? I really wanted Vic to be essentially lost at sea.
Uh-huh. I guess that must have made you really kind of ruminate a little bit about yourself and how you changed since then, especially kind of the kind of your close friends and the friends that are around you know, the kind of the way things may have shifted a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Old relationships, thinking back in time to, how something felt so important in the moment, and then years later it's something you barely think about, or the
yeah,
opposite, it's something in the moment you weren't thinking about at all. And then suddenly you look back and you're like, oh, that was such an important part of my life.
yeah. Uh-huh, brilliant. Yeah, and now I want to talk about the setting because the setting is very very specific. It kind of because they go to this place that they call the McRansion, which is like an
Yeah.
Airbnb house,
Yeah.
and it's in the town of Superstition. I'm quite curious how much of that is completely made up, and how much of that is actually based on something that maybe you've experienced yourself.
Yeah, so the I started writing this at a writer's retreat in Joshua Tree when we
Right,
were staying at an Airbnb. I
right.
just,
So,
I had forgotten my laptop charger at home, so I was handwriting everything. I didn't have the thing that I was working on at the time. And so, I looked at my surroundings. I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. And what's going on here?" And so, it's progressed a lot since then. But 100%, the house that I envision in this book is the house that I stayed in back
right.
then. Like, it's just
Uh-huh.
so easy. Like, it was such a weird house to stay in, just like the layout and how they chose to decorate it, that it's just like forever ingrained in my mind.
Uh-huh. And so yes, the seed of the story started whilst you were on that actual retreat
Yeah,
itself. Uh-huh.
yeah.
And where was the kind of the light bulb moment that you realized you wanted to write this kind of vampire love story
hmm
set in an Airbnb?
Yeah, well, at first I wasn't sure what I was writing, and I was just kind of
Uh-huh.
like getting in like the setting and maybe some of the characters. And it wasn't until a few months later, and I was back home, obviously, and I was thinking about. Um, I wouldn't say I felt like I was in a rut creatively, but I was ready to branch out and explore different things. And I
Yeah.
told myself, you know what? Why don't you? I essentially started calling it the horny desert vampire story.
Honey, does it?
Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? Just talking about pushing it to extremes. I was like, just follow that, see where it goes.
Yeah.
Um, it's smuttier, it's gorier than some of the other stuff I write, but I was like, just
Yeah.
like lean into that for this one and see how it goes. It started out as a novella only, and it
All
was
right.
expanded out to a book
Uh-huh.
once Sando bought it.
How did you decide that it was probably better to be to be fleshed out rather than a novella?
That was their
That was her decision.
choice. No,
Yeah.
not choice decision, but they're like, hey, this should be a book.
Right.
What do you think about that? I
Uh-huh.
was like, yeah, sure. So I, more than doubled the length and worked with the editor and figured it out.
Uh-huh. Brilliant, brilliant. Uh-huh. And also, well, in the book itself, there's mention of a secondhand bookstore in there, which is kind of compared to a church, and it says
Mhm.
reverence is thick in the air, and I am here to worship. So I'm quite curious, what is that the kind of relationship that you have with literature?
I think, yeah, I think, growing up in Europe and seeing a lot of Gothic places like that, am just used to places having uh, an ambiance, a reverence to them that always feels spiritual to me. Like, so there's just
Uh-huh.
certain places. Some people might describe it as like a liminal space or something like that, but for me, it feels almost like a religious experience. I was raised Roman Catholic. I'm not Catholic.
Right.
I left the church many, many years ago.
Uh,
But that same sensation still remains within me when it comes
okay.
to
Can I
places.
ask you whereabouts you grew up? Because I live in Spain. I've been living in Spain for the past almost
Okay,
30
cool.
years now. Yeah,
Yeah, one of the places I lived was in Madrid.
in Madrid. Right.
I've lived in Austria, Slovakia, Spain, and Scotland.
Oh, so you've been all over the place, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That must have really not informed, but led you to read really different kinds of uh b- literature from all different places now, because like the Scottish have got a lot of folklore,
yeah,
Spain very
yeah.
different.
I was very lucky that I had that opportunity as a child, and that my parents were like, "Hey, we're out here. Let's drive around Europe. Let's travel to different places. Let's look at museums, castles, all of that stuff." So
Uh-huh.
I definitely grew up with some very awesome experiences.
Uh-huh, brilliant. Uh-huh. And I guess that moving around that also kind of, I imagine that informed you very much about how you wrote about the different friends that you have in this book, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've met a lot of people in a lot of different situations, and definitely I plumbed the depths of my my experience for some of these people. Yeah,
Yeah, because moving around as a child and kind of having to change different friends at different places must have been, in a lot of ways, good, but also difficult to kind of say goodbye to different people, no, in different times.
yeah, absolutely a mixed
Yeah.
bag. Packing up and leaving every few years from a place was definitely informed my childhood.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Uh-huh. So going back to this secondhand bookstore, you mentioned Dracula is one of the
hmm
books there. I'm quite curious. I mean, obviously that must have been a huge influence to this story. But I'm kind of curious, was there anything else that you were particularly kind of inspired by in terms of the vampire lore that you wanted to imbue in this book, but also things that you wanted to kind of shy away from because you don't think that they would have really worked for this story?
Yeah, I was calling it the Horny Desert Vampire story, and so of course, Dusk Till Dawn was always at the front of my mind.
Right.
But I purposely wanted to step outside of the limited scope of vampirism in pop culture and in literature. Um, I think there's certain aspects of it that I really wanted to stick to, like the parasitic nature of,
Right.
someone feeding on a community. But there are so many vampiric stories from around the world that aren't a white aristocratic male that I really want people to like think beyond that and think of like what aspects of vampirism are important to you, which ones aren't. I definitely, push the envelope quite a bit. I know some readers are not super thrilled about the liberties I took with vampirism, but
Well,
that's
you can't
fine.
please everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but I had a lot of fun trying to figure out what exactly my vampires would be like. And I also made sure to kind of just like leave some Easter eggs in there for like the classical vampiric
Yeah.
lore.
Uh-huh. And kind of while you were writing this story, you said that you wanted to kind of imbue something new, something different, something that's not so typical. Was there anything that surprised you without giving the story, or anything that surprised you that you came up with that you didn't expect it going in?
Um, I think when I ultimately leaned into the whole worm aspect, I won't say more than
Right.
that, but that was I kind of like went down this rabbit hole about like what parasites are and the forms that they take and how they live and all that. And
Mm.
there was something just really visceral to me about something small crawling. You don't really see it. It's like living inside of you. And
Yeah.
so that kind of snowballed into what it is now.
Uh-huh. But and also, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a biker gang plays heavily in the story as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how Victor he only really knows of biker gangs through Sons of Anarchy and those kind of
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah,
I'm quite
exactly.
curious, were you very biker gang savvy before you went into the story, or did you kind of really dig deep into kind of how
I'm
biker gang?
somewhere in the middle. I wanted to I wanted him to have this kind of stereotypical view of this group
Right.
and the reader to know that his view is kind of silly and that like there's more to biker gangs than what he's experienced and what he's seeing. And so filtering it through his POV was kind of fun to just kind of show that he obviously doesn't know everything and doesn't like admitting that he doesn't know everything.
Uh-huh. And then also that there's especially when he's with kind of the biker gang, there's some very fever dream moments or dream moments. Especially when I'm watching movies, there's a lot of times when it turns to dreams or flashbacks, they can very often pull me out of the story. Whereas here, this
Hmm.
didn't at all. And
Oh, good.
you were very kind of made sure you made the reader aware. You were very transparent, kind of saying when we are experiencing dreams because you kind of say that Victor he realizes himself that he's experiencing a dream. So I'm guessing that was kind of very specifically to make sure that we weren't pulled out or kind of the wool wasn't pulled from under our eyes that we were whether this was actually happening or not, right?
Yeah, I never wanted to rely on like, oh, but it was all a dream or anything
Yeah,
like that, you know? One of my closest friends, who's also a writer, despises dream sequences.
yeah,
And for years, he's talked about it. So anytime I'm writing, especially when I'm talking about when I'm writing dream sequences, which
you
I
think of
happen to
him,
like a lot, I think of
right? You
him
do.
and I'm like, don't make this bad, like and I think, having it in first person, having it be him made it a lot easier to just kind of like keep the reader in, let them know, hey, something's happening here, enjoy, you know?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And then also at the same time, we see this kind of these dream sequences of Victor, but also Victor has this nagging voice in his head a lot. We're in his head
Yeah.
a lot. I'm quite curious how you came to create this nagging voice of his. How did you find that voice? Was it something that you prepared beforehand, or was it something that kind of grew organically as you were writing the story?
I think the nagging voice kind of grew organically once I decided to put it into first person.
Right.
I know a lot of people have inner monologues, and not everyone. I have one. I know people that do, and I wanted to have that realism of having that inner monologue, and that'll allow the reader to get to know him and his psyche a little bit better. But also, it's a way for um, another element to come in and start affecting and changing things for him.
Yeah,
I'm trying
100%.
to avoid spoilers, you know.
No, yeah, no, yeah, I get you, yeah. But no, yeah, but I really appreciated the fact that I don't know, it helped it helped it kind of helped ground the story because when these supernatural things happen, the skepticism that is in his nagging voice really kind of grounds the whole thing, to make it more believable.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Brilliant. And then also there's a whole lot of needle drops in this book. There's a lot of mentions of different songs and music and things like that.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
quite curious how much music plays a part in the writing process. If you use music a lot whilst you're actually writing.
yeah. I love music. I'm listening to music almost the entire day, and
Right.
throughout the night, even while I'm sleeping.
All right. Even when you're
When I'm
sleeping as well, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I'll have like, some kind of music on when I'm sleeping,
to help
even.
you sleep.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and 100% when I was writing this, I had like a playlist going on, but also just um, there's one album I listen to on repeat most of the times when I'm writing, and it's
Uh-huh.
the Tron soundtrack by Daft Punk.
All right.
I
Yeah.
literally just have it on repeat for hours and hours and hours.
Uh-huh.
It like puts my brain in the right mood, and it works really well for me.
Uh-huh. Was there any specific thing, anything specific that you listened to for to help you with this story at all? Aside besides
Yeah,
this Tron one, because that
Massive
doesn't.
Attack was
Right.
was a
Yeah,
big
there's a
one.
mention of massive attack in the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just some things like, like dark about their music that like just it's kind of like sexy, it's kind of like weird and dark. It just worked really well for the mood that I was trying to create for the book.
Uh-huh. Brilliant, brilliant. Talking of the mood of the book, the cover also sets a really specific mood. It's a fantastic, fantastic cover. I can't wait to get my hands on one with the sprayed edges. How involved are you with the actual artwork that goes into the book?
Yeah, so I was surprised. This is my debut, so as I was working on it, I was like, I'm going traditional, but I'm expecting a lot of this is going to be out of my hands, and I'm just going to see how it goes.
Hmm.
Um, Evil Twin slash Zando asked me for, inspiration, description, images, and then took that to an artist, Marcela, who, created this cover, which I think is amazing. Um, they even took my request of having the artist be from Latin America.
All
And
right.
so they really listened to like
Mm-hmm.
my ideas and all that. And like once it was like on its way, the amount of input I could give was, lower, which is understandable.
Yeah.
Um, but I was very pleasantly surprised by the amount of input that I had.
Uh-huh. Brilliant. And then will you be taking the book on tour? Will you be doing a tour to launch the book? Where
Yeah,
can
I've
people
got a
where will people be able to find you?
yeah, so I will be in Book Soup in LA on August 18th. I will be at Powell's in Cedar Hills in Portland, Oregon on the 19th.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be at Mysterious Galaxy in San Diego on the 20th. So it's a
Brilliant.
3 day quick kind of journey that
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to.
Uh-huh. And PM, will people be able to get signed copies of the book as well elsewhere?
Yes. So you can get, obviously, if you're there in person, you can get signed copies. If you order the book through any of those three stores,
Yeah.
Book Soup, Powell's, or Mysterious Galaxy, I will sign them and then they will ship them to you. And I think there's probably going to be other ways to get them after launch.
Brilliant. I'll add all of the links down below
Okay,
the
great.
interview.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. So just before I let you go, then I like to ask some very quick fire questions just to see
Okay.
to see. Um, if your life had chapter titles, what chapter would you say you're in now?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Um, I'm a sucker for like one word titles or one word chapter headings.
Hmm.
Um, So I think Jump is the
Jump.
title I would use now, just because it feels
Uh-huh.
like I've jumped into something new and I'm kind of like waiting to see what happens next.
Uh-huh. But when you say you jumped into something to see what happens next, but have you, I imagine you've got something in the pipeline at the moment, no? That you,
Sure, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I do. I managed to sell a second book to
You
Evil
sold that
Twin
already.
that
Oh,
they've
great.
announced. Yeah.
Congratulations. Uh-huh.
So that'll be out a year from now ish
Right.
around. And yeah, I'm always working on other stuff as well.
Uh-huh. Brilliant. Uh-huh. During the writing of this book, what's a mistake that you're secretly grateful for?
Hmm. I wouldn't call it a mistake, but my editor, or I wouldn't call it a mistake necessarily, but my editor and I went back and forth about having the prologue and the interstitial scenes where you're in the POV
Right.
of of
Of
the
the,
creature, the
of the
infestation,
creature.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. When I wrote this, I was like, no, I just want to stick in Vic's head, blah blah blah. And my editor and I went back and forth, TJ, and he was like, no, why don't you just try writing a couple scenes in it, see how it feels, this, that, and the other. And after being stubborn, but those became some of my favorite scenes, and I think especially the prologue really sets the scene for the book
Yeah.
very well. I was perfectly fine having the book be an extremely slow burn where you don't know what's happening
Right.
until like 70%. And
Uh-huh.
TJ was like, let's give the readers a little bit more than that.
Yeah, just
So
think seriously.
yeah, so I'm very thankful that TJ really was like, no, really think about this and try this out.
Yeah, no, I think it works really well. The setup is just that kind of that short prologue, and then we kind of dive into it. Yeah, I think it worked really well. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Good. They'll be
Brilliant.
great. They'll be happy to hear that.
Contrary to that, then, when would you say that you're your own worst enemy when it comes to writing?
um, I'm I'm I don't think this is unique, but I'm very hard on myself, and I don't really celebrate or even sometimes acknowledge my wins. I'm just kind of like, even when something's successful, I'm like waiting for the other shoe to drop, or I'm working on the next thing.
Hmm.
So I don't really focus on like moments or things that I've been successful in to really try and understand and appreciate that. I'm always like, okay,
Yeah.
that was fine, but what's the next thing? Or how do
Yeah.
I make it even better?
So I mean, it's the same in the, yeah, with books, movies, whatever. There's no equation. There's no
Yeah,
perfect formula, right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah.
And then just to finish off, specifically related to the book, if vampires could review humans, what would they complain about the most?
Oof.
Well,
Well, then
let's take the vampires in your book.
I'd say like the noise and just how messy we are, and like in a lot of ways we are just kind of like over-evolved animals.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time, AP. I
Thank
really,
you.
like I said, I really appreciate you speaking to me. And I really appreciate the book. It was a great read, and I
Thank you
wish you
very
the best of
much.
luck with it. And I hope to speak to you about again and soon about the next book that
The
you've
next
also
one, yeah,
sold there. That'd be
that'd be
great.
great. Thank you. I
All right, thank you
appreciate you
for your
having
time.
me.
Have a
All
great
right,
day.
thank you.
Speak soon
Bye
then.
now.
Take care. Bye now.